Okay, great. Welcome, everybody. I'm very excited. I see not just people, I guess, from Serbia, but also Greece, USA. Wow, I mean, that's really international community. Very much looking forward to share with you and then also at the end discuss with you. So also from my side, thanks to Agile Humans for inviting me. Thanks to Alexander for organizing everything, and thanks to Yasmina and Nikolic for setting the initial impulse for connecting us. Yeah, very happy to be here tonight. So you probably spoke about, you probably read about like the what I wrote, and I'm going to share a little bit about this tonight. So the way we will do this is I'm going to talk for maybe 45 minutes. We're going to do some exercises. We'll be a bit interactive. And then we have time at the end to discuss in small groups and also in the large group. Yeah, okay, great. So let's get started. How mindfulness can help you with Agile and also to have a happier life. So my idea for the talk is that at the end, you know what mindfulness is. You know what some of the benefits are, you know how it connects with Agile. And my hope is that at the end, you can decide for yourself if you want to explore this more, or if you say, well, that's not really something I'm interested in, which would also be totally fine. But that's really my hope, to give you enough information to say that, yeah, I'm going to deep dive into this. I'm going to learn more about this. Yeah. Because I personally think it's very exciting and it connects really well to my work as an Agile coach. Okay, so, and before we kind of dive into what is mindfulness and what is meditation, or what is mindfulness and what is this word like meditation, I actually want to ask you, what are your associations with the word mindfulness, or when you hear the word meditation? So what kind of images, words come up? And what I would really enjoy if you just type this into the chat, and yeah, let us hear what kind of comes up if you hear these words. What are like the first images or words you have in mind when you hear mindfulness or meditation? Yeah, calm, mindfulness is being in the present, power, wow, cool, yeah, breathing. Oh yeah, that's already the separation, mindfulness and meditation. Balance and peace, awareness. Okay, great. Yeah, presence, understanding. Yeah, okay. Presence in the current moment, feeling it with connection between body and mind. Wow, cool, yeah. Okay, thank you all. So I find this always interesting to ask at the beginning, because the word mindfulness and the concept of mindfulness, at least I know of the US and also here in Germany, it has become a very often used word. Like if I go to a bookstore here in Germany, you know, they have like 2-3 meters just books on mindfulness. So it's like in a personal realm, it's you know, a lot of people talk about mindfulness. But that also means that very different things are meant by mindfulness. It's a little bit with Agile the same, that, you know, sometimes when I go into the company and they tell me, or they ask, or they tell me about how they are, and they say to me, yeah, we're already doing Agile, and then they tell me what they do, and sometimes I think yes, and sometimes I think, well, that's not what I would call Agile. So it's a bit like the same with mindfulness. So I actually want to kind of clarify what I mean by this. Yeah, Scrum Bot, yeah, great. I just see it in the comments. Yeah, that's also something I see quite often. Yeah. So first, let's let's talk about the word meditation. And actually, one person already wrote this. Meditation, it comes from kind of an old Sanskrit word. And when you look at how this word is used, it actually means training. Yeah, it actually means training the mind in specific qualities. And that's what it is. So it's kind of different ways of training. So meditation actually is nothing esoteric, nothing strange. It's just maybe a bit of a strange word for training the mind. So that's kind of very much nicely connects to what one person said. So we have meditation kind of clarified. So let's look at what is mindfulness. I would like to spend a bit more time there. So mindfulness, what do I mean by mindfulness? When I talk about mindfulness, I actually talk about kind of a modern mindfulness practice that has emerged in the last 30 years. Yeah. So with mindfulness, it also includes like training, training using meditation and maybe other techniques. And what is also true that it's that mindfulness is something that's systematic. So in a similar way, when you imagine I'm going to a gym, yeah, I'm just signing up for a gym, and then I meet a trainer there. And let's say she looks at me and we do some exercises, and then she writes me a training plan. And this training plan is not something that she just makes up. It's something that has some kind of system behind it. Yeah, sometimes some kind of system of when to train what muscles and what needs to balance with what, and so on. You know, many things we know about how to train our body and how to train our body, basically. So, and a similar thing is developing in the mindfulness world. It's not as elaborate yet as with like physical fitness, but it's emerging in the last 20, 30 years, right? So a very kind of systematic approach to it, or actually, of course, many and also sometimes competing systems, but there are systems. It's not just, you know, something one person makes up and then it vanishes when that person stops teaching or dies or whatever. The second thing is it's kind of taken out of a religious and very specific cultural contexts. So of course, a lot of when we talk about meditation and mindfulness, a lot of the techniques, the practices come from a Buddhist background, and some are just a few hundred years old, and some techniques are even 1,000 or 2,000 years old. But what modern mindfulness, or kind of the modern mindfulness movement, does is kind of translating this into a language that we can understand without having to dive really deep into these, let's say, Buddhist contexts or kind of Eastern Asian cultural contexts. So this actually gets translated, yeah, and that's very helpful because that makes it a lot more accessible. And the reason this is, or one reason why this is happening, is actually like my last point, that modern mindfulness for me is something that is based on science and that is actually examined by science. Yeah. And you know that if you want to apply scientific principles and you know, if you want to explore something scientifically, you need clear language, right? And that's what they are trying to do, because like science or scientists found meditators to be really interesting research subjects, because some meditators can do quite interesting things in terms of how they can steer their attention, or how they can be concentrated, or what they can do with their brain, which can then be imaged through like functional resonance, magnetic imaging. So meditators are really interesting research subjects. So, and in order to explore what is working around mindfulness and maybe what isn't working, we need a clear language. And this has been developed, or is of course still developing, in the last 20 to 30 years. So, and that's why I think that mindfulness, although a lot of the techniques are quite old, that's the reason why I think why it's now interesting to look at this, because there is kind of a community and you know, certain things around it that that make it much more accessible. Okay, so I mean, can we just, I just hear some background noises. Alexander, can you kind of mute people when they come in? Just not sure where that comes from.
I can just ask everybody to mute themselves, so we will avoid this problems like this.
Let's see. It's not a lot. I was just noticing it.
Okay.
Okay. Great. So let's look at what. So I just said that mindfulness is a way to develop certain qualities of the mind, right? So what are these qualities? And here I'm using a model from one of my teachers that I actually find quite helpful, and that quite nicely connects to kind of our way of working agile in the business world. So, and these are like three skills that that you can develop with a good mindfulness practice. And I'm just going to go through these skills one by one. So what's the first skill? The first skill is concentration. Concentration means probably what you think it would mean. It's the ability to be able to focus on what is important for you. And you probably know this from your work. Like maybe you are a software developer, or you do other kind of, you know, complex knowledge work. And sometimes you have these wonderful days where you kind of, you know, you sit down in front of your computer, you start your work, you know, you have like a feature to develop, a piece of software, and then you get into it. And then you're really lucky. And you're lucky in the sense that nobody disturbs you. And then you get into some kind of flow. And like maybe 90 minutes or like 2 hours later, you kind of get hungry or whatever, and you kind of look up, look at what you've done, and you say, and it's a sense of, wow, this was kind of a really great 2 hours I just had. Like I was so productive, and I have a deep sense of satisfaction around this. Yeah. So, and that's what we call a flow state, right? And for flow states, you actually need to have, if you want to have it perfectly, an uninterrupted time to kind of get into the flow state and stay into the flow state. And there are interesting studies on how much time we have before we usually get interrupted. So there are studies that are done with people in IT where they actually stand beside the person and measure how long can this person work before he or she gets interrupted by, you know, whatever, a colleague coming by, the telephone going off, the messenger popping up, blah, 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 you know, like changing the context of what this person is working on. So I want to ask you, what do you think? What do you think? How many minutes is it that on average we have before we get interrupted? Just check in. Is it 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 45 minutes, 2 hours? What do you think? 7.5 seconds. 1 minute. Yeah, wow.
Wow.
1 minute. Okay. Yeah, just find your, you know, just, you know, pick a number just for checking. Yeah. So there's one study, the study is already 15 years old, where they have done this with IT workers in California. And in that study, they had something like 11.5 minutes. So, the average worker there at that time had 11.5 minutes before he or she got interrupted. So that in terms of getting into a flow state, that's really depressing, because there's also research that to get into a flow state, you probably need a bit more than 20 minutes before you actually enter this flow state of uninterrupted time, right? So, and that's also these kinds of days that you also know, like at the end of the day, when you close the laptop, you leave your desk and you go like, what the hell did I do today? I don't remember. It feels like I haven't finished anything. I haven't achieved anything. And it's like, oh, yeah. So, and that's usually a day where you got interrupted a lot, yeah, and where you never got into something close to a flow state. So that's pretty bad news for that. There's something else about this study with the 11.5 minutes that's, for our purposes here, even more interesting. And what they also found out is that half of the interruptions are caused by yourself. Yeah. So for half of the interruptions, it's not the case that someone else came and interrupted you. It's not the case that someone sent an email and it popped up and you switched your focus. For half of the situations, someone out of any outside necessity switched their focus. So that's actually the situations where you sit at your computer, you write a concept or you code something, and then suddenly you change the window that you're working in and start to write an email or whatever, check Facebook or read the news or, whatever, or grab the phone and talk to someone else about something different. So, and that's really interesting, because that's exactly where concentration, of course, is really helpful. Concentration helps you to reduce the amount of these self-inflicted interruptions. Yeah. And the fascinating thing about mindfulness and about everything I actually talk about tonight is that these things like concentration and the two more that I will talk about in a minute, these things are trainable. So you can actually train concentration. You can train the other skills. So you can increase that, or you can decrease the amount of time, or the amount of time you actually get interrupted. So, and that means you can usually stay longer in flow states, and you have a higher chance to actually get into them if you have this training. Yeah? And even if that's just 10% increasing your capacity to concentrate, that's huge. Because we all know that in this kind of work that we are doing, where there are so many things wanting to grab our attention, like the skill to actually focus on what is really important now is really essential. So that's concentration. So let's look at the other two. The next one is clarity. And I want to explain clarity with a little example. When I was 18 years old, I got my first pair of glasses. I still need glasses. I actually wear contact lenses now. So, but then back then, I got my first pair of glasses. So I sat in this store, the optician, I don't know if that's the English word, so where you can buy your glasses. And, it was ready. First time I had it in my hands, I put it on my face and I looked out of the window, and I still remember, like, there was like a big tree out there, like maybe 30, 40 meters away, that I could see through the window. And I was like, wow. Of course, I knew before and I saw the tree before, but now I could actually see like the tiny little leaves. And I hadn't seen those. Like before, that was all just, some green area that I saw. And now it's like, wow, so precise. So today I would say high definition, like a 4K TV. And what clarity is translating, or translating this idea to what is going on inside you. Yeah? So to have more clarity, more precision, more resolution about knowing what's going on in yourself and kind of what's driving you, what's coming up. And that's very useful in our business life. So let's say you have a meeting and your colleague is presenting something, and you're just sitting there thinking, I don't like this idea. Whatever he or she's saying, I don't like it. Yeah. So, and clarity then helps you to be really clear and to not lie to yourself. Yeah. To be really clear on why is that? Why don't I like the idea? Of course, it can be because I have 3 good arguments why this isn't a good idea. Yeah. But sometimes it's also at least partly the case that maybe something simple as I haven't had coffee yet, or I haven't eaten enough and I'm a bit, hungry and grumpy because of that. And that's why, that's all too complicated. Yeah. Or maybe it's because 2 months ago, I was standing there and my colleague criticized my idea and didn't like it. Yeah. So maybe it's a little bit still because of that. Yeah. And clarity is really the skill to discern that, to understand what is it, what's driving me here. Yeah. And of course, if you have that, you actually make better decisions that combine kind of the facts from the outside world with your intuition, with what is going on inside you. And this is essential in kind of a complex space of making decisions. So that's clarity. What's the third one? The third one is equanimity. And I also want to explain that in terms or by example. Actually, an example now it's like 2 years ago or even a bit more. So I was coaching a team, and actually things were kind of going well, like one team doing Agile, doing Scrum, and then we had a product owner. And at one point during the day, she came to me and said, "Oh, Markus, I'm so frustrated. I want to quit." Yeah, I'm like, ugh. Yeah, and I was saying, "Okay, what's going on?" And then she told me that she just had a meeting with her boss, and her boss kind of told her to please now, finish the product backlog. Make sure all the requirements are in there, and then estimate it. And then, make a plan of, how long is this thing going to take? And, just give him a plan to, an exact plan. And this is how long it's going to take. Yeah. And she was frustrated because we had been working a lot about Agile and, going incrementally and all these things. And then we kind of, it took a while, and then, a lot of conversations, and then still continuing, so it didn't really impact the project, but it was a frustrating moment. And afterwards I thought, well, why did that happen? What was going on? And I was very clear that this boss, the person who had told her to make a plan, it's not, I was absolutely sure he didn't say that because he did not say that. No, let's say let's do it the other way. So I was sure that the reason for him saying this was not because he didn't understand Agile or something, or we often say about people like that, well, yeah, he didn't get it. Yeah, he doesn't understand it. And I was pretty sure that this is not the case. Yeah, because that was really a smart person. And we had trainings where he participated, and so on and so on. We had all those discussions. Yeah? So I was pretty sure it's not about intellectual understanding. Yeah. And then, like, through some conversations, I actually, what my sense was that it was actually a situation where this person felt maybe frustrated or overwhelmed with the kind of uncertainty that we have in Agile. Yeah? So there is this uncertainty of actually not really knowing when we will be finished. There is this uncertainty that if a feature is like far ahead in the future, we don't really know when it will be delivered. Yeah? And we deal with that in Agile by all these things like going incrementally, building feedback loops, trying to empirically estimate when things will be done, but this has a certain level of uncertainty, and so on and so on. So we have our ways of dealing with that. But our Agile ways with dealing with that still leave the uncertainty intact. I can still feel it. Yeah. So intellectually, I might understand all of it, but I still feel a lot of uncertainty and maybe frustration around it. So feeling that is unpleasant. Yeah. And that's the thing. If we feel something that's unpleasant, it's very common to kind of jump to the first known solution that gives me some sense of relief. And that's what he did. Yeah, he was a very experienced project manager. Like, he has learned his trade for like 30 years. And what is someone doing if he's experiencing like and too much uncertainty? He makes a plan, or he lets people make a plan, and da 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 da. And then we have everything under control. Yeah, of course we know that that's not true, right? Because it just seems we have things under control. Yeah, because the plan never works out. But what it does, it gives you a good sense of, yeah, I have this under control. So what happened for that person is that there was something unpleasant, and he jumped to kind of a strategy automatically without kind of reflecting that gave him some relief. And that's actually an example. When you have equanimity, then you have some space between this trigger, it doesn't feel good, and your response, and you can reflect in this space. Yeah. So maybe you know this, there's a saying by Viktor Frankl. Actually, I don't know how to say that in English. It says, it's something like, I should have looked that up, something like there's a space between a trigger and my response. And in that space, I can make decisions. And within that space is my freedom. Yeah. And sometimes, well, actually quite often in life, this space becomes really small or is seemingly not existent. And mindfulness really helps to get you into an inner state where this space is more often, more reliably there. And that's actually what I'm also experiencing in organizations. So when I have the sense that there are a lot of people who have like a certain level of equanimity, who are kind of not automatically jumping from something happens and that is my solution, yeah? Who can reflect for a moment and actually really pick their solution to what they really want to do, and not what they have been trained to do by whatever their childhood or their education. These are the organizations I experience as much more able to experiment, to try out new things, to change themselves. So all the things we want to do with Agile, right? Okay. So that's equanimity. Okay. So what I would like to do is, because I was talking for a while now, to actually have like a few minutes of practice. So I would actually do a mindfulness practice with you, if you are up for that. Okay. So first, what I find really important is you can make a choice if you want to join in with the practice or not. And if you don't want to join, that's perfectly fine. Then just, stay in front of the computer so that you notice when we continue. But you can basically do whatever you want. And especially here, we don't see you not participating anyway. So you're really free to choose. Yeah? And it's really important that you do it voluntarily, not because me or someone else said this. Yeah? And if you want to join, I also invite you to kind of join fully, to kind of really, okay, I'm going to try this for the next 3-4 minutes, right? Okay, so if you want to do that, I'd like you to find a position where you can actually sit in a very relaxed, but at the same time awake way. So usually it helps to have both feet on the ground, to have your back straight, and to actually feel for a moment the ground and the chair you might be sitting on. And if you want, you can close your eyes for these 2-3 minutes. If not, then just find a point where you can rest your gaze. Okay, and I suggest just to take a couple of deep breaths. Breathing in and breathing out deeply, and actually focus a bit on the breath out, kind of extend the out breath a little bit for now. Okay, and then just let your breath flow naturally without any interference. And just notice your body sensations that are connected with your breathing. So you can notice the air flowing into your nose, your chest lifting, your stomach extending, and so just notice your body rise and fall with the in-breath and the out-breath. Okay, and by now you probably notice that it's actually not that easy. You probably noticed that at some point your attention wasn't with your breath, that your attention was somewhere else. Maybe in thoughts about dinner or what you will need to do tomorrow, or something about the day came up, or you're just feeling hungry, or whatever. And that's totally natural. It's part of the training. And the meditation practice is then to actually return to your breath, to notice that you have been distracted, that you have been somewhere else with your attention, and then just softly and kindly bring your attention back to noticing your body sensations of breathing. And repeat this again and again. So at some point you will be distracted again, and then you bring your attention back to your sensations, to the sensations of breathing. And every time you do this, you're actually training your concentration muscle, basically. Every time you return, it's like you return your attention. It's like lifting the weight in the gym one time. So when you're distracted a lot, it's not a problem. Yeah, it's actually great because then you can practice a lot. You notice you're distracted, you come back. Oh, there's another distraction. You come back to your breath. Oh, 3 seconds later, another distraction. You come back to your breath. No problem. All great. Every time you're strengthening your concentration muscle, your ability to return to what is important to you. So see if you can follow a breath fully, like really following all of the in-breath and following all of the out-breath, and really staying with your attention with every little sensation you have on the way. Okay, and now just let go of the breath as a focus area and just check in with yourself for a moment. How are you right now? How are you feeling? Just allow to come up whatever comes up. Maybe you're tired after a long day. Maybe it's a bit exhausting to sit here. Maybe you're feeling very awake. Maybe you're thirsty or hungry. And whatever comes up, just that's okay. Allow it to be there. Okay, and then slowly open your eyes. Take like one more breath to also bring back your attention outwards. Okay, I would love to hear from one person. Like, how was that for you? I would say just unmute yourself and start speaking, and the first person who speaks is the person. And I know that is hard to, yeah, please.
Checking if somebody else is coming in. For me, it was wonderful. Thank you very much. I've done it many times, longer and shorter, but this was very sweet and very weird because the camera is there. So like, But no, very nice. And yes, going back and forth for sure. Yeah, this game subsides with practice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like you say, it's almost like a little game, and it's very helpful to do this playfully. I love it that you call it a game. And yes, if you practice more, there is kind of naturally a calming down. Yeah. But I always say, don't expect that right in the beginning, because I so often hear people say, I can't meditate because my head is not empty. And that's not the goal. You will never have an empty head. Yeah, your mind is trained, and it makes sense that it creates new thoughts, and a lot of time that's really, really helpful. So it's not about having, an empty mind. It's about the skill to direct your attention to where you want to have it. And you can train that, even if your mind is like really, really busy. Yeah. Of course, sometimes it can be more pleasant when it's kind of quiet, because sometimes you experience relaxation and spaciousness then. But meditation doesn't have to be pleasant all the time. Yeah, it also works when it's not pleasant. Yeah, as long as you're kind of having a clear technique and training well. Okay, great. Thank you. Maya also wrote that it felt so good. Okay, great.
Markus, I'm so sorry. I would like to ask one question related to meditation. And that's, you said it won't be pleasant every time. So is the point to practice every single time to make it be pleasant? Or that's actually normal thing that sometimes you have pleasant meditation and sometimes it is not pleasant. So both are normal condition.
Yeah, exactly. What you said at the end, both is normal. Of course, we have a tendency to strive for the pleasant experiences. Yeah, but it's actually part of it it can be very helpful once you've established kind of a regular meditation practice to sit with discomfort. And that can be physical discomfort or it can be emotional discomfort, because then this can kind of come up and unfold itself. And that can really kind of clear things out for yourself. And this process it's not necessarily pleasant. Yeah. But it's very helpful and beneficial for each and every one of us. So, yeah, so I'm always saying that because especially in the beginning, like people are, I tried it once, my mind went crazy, I didn't like it, that's not for me. And it's like, okay. And it's kind of this, it needs a bit more practice. Meditation, unfortunately, I would say it's not a quick fix. It's something that you actually need to try for a while before you really reap the benefits. Yeah. And that makes it quite difficult to really take it in as a habit. Yeah. Because it's not like you do it once and you think, oh yeah, that's great, I'm going to do it again tomorrow. Yeah. Sometimes that works like that, but sometimes it's just like, it's okay, or kind of it's actually sometimes even unpleasant. Yeah. But that doesn't mean it's not working. Okay, thank you for the question. Yeah.
Hey, hi, it's Yasmina. Hey, hi.
Oh, hey.
Can I share something? Because something funny happened, and this thing here.
Sure.
When the meditation started, she decided to join because I sat on a wall, her favorite wall. That is my also favorite spot. So she joined, and then you had to embrace that. I had to embrace that as well. So to concentrate on the breath, but also I didn't want to push her. And that was a fun experience, like having all the time being interrupted by her, but at the same time enjoying the practice. So I never had that before. Thank you.
Yeah, the dog sensed it.
Yeah. No, actually, she brought the ball. That's what she wanted.
Oh, okay. Let's not exaggerate the effects of the meditation. No, of course, like things like that happen. And so meditation is not about, or not necessarily about like, oh my God, and now my dog disturbs me or something happens. It's rather about how you meet that experience. So how am I that relating to the reality that I'm sitting here and my plan was to do this meditation and now the dog shows up? So can I kind of embrace that? And okay, now I'm in the present moment. I'm partly with my breath and I partly have the sensation of holding the dog, for example, or hearing the dog, barking or whatever. Like, so you can play with that, and that can all be part of a very beneficial meditation practice. Yeah. Okay, cool, and good to see you. Hey.
Good to see you too.
Okay, so let's look a little bit at how can you actually develop mindfulness. So there are like three general ways to do that. The first one is like what we just did. So it's like you do meditation, you do like a formal practice where you train. So that's kind of the analogy, is like I'm going to the gym and I'm doing my exercises there. Yeah. And there's the place, the time where I train. Yeah. And meditation, like I said before, there are many techniques in meditation. What we just did with the focusing on the breath is just one technique. And there are many others where you can kind of train different things in different ways. So that's kind of the formal training. Yeah. And then there's kind of the analogy to taking the stairs instead of the elevator. Yeah. So, and that's in meditation world, or I and a few others, we call this micro hits. Yeah. It's like a really short, brief moment in your day where you say, oh, and I'm going to transform this into a mindful moment. Yeah. And it's maybe just taking 3 deep breaths before I call that person, and just centering myself before I start the whatever Teams call or Zoom call or whatever. Yeah. And there are also many kind of different ways to do that, and many different techniques and ideas how to integrate mindfulness in this way in my daily life. And then there's kind of the third idea of actually, how can I change my environment, the systems around me, so that it's easier for me to be more mindful, so that it's easier for me to have more concentration, more clarity, more equanimity, right? And that is actually where Agile really comes in. Because in my sense, Agile is exactly doing this. Agile is a way of changing the organization, changing the processes, the systems, the ways we are working. So it changes kind of my surrounding, my environment. And mindfulness is kind of the personal training counterpart. Yeah? With mindfulness, I train my skill. And with Agile, we change the system around us in order to be more mindful. And we actually have a lot of things in Agile that map quite nicely on these three skills. Yeah? So what do we do in Agile that's around concentration? Well, we do backlogs. We limit work in progress. We prioritize things. And we do this in order to not do too many things at the same time, right? So that's concentration. Yeah? We care about transparency. We try hard to create an environment, to create data so that we actually understand empirically what's going on. We try to create feedback loops. And that's clarity. That's seeing things as they are, right? And we also work hard to create a culture where we can experiment, where we feel psychologically safe to show ourselves, and where we can say, well, I'm not sure, I don't know. Yeah. So where we can feel uncertainty and don't have to make it go right away. Yeah, we don't have to make it go away. And that's equanimity, right? So we actually kind of have a lot of things in Agile that map on these 3 skills, in my perspective. Okay, so how can you apply this into your life personally? Well, first, the reminder, mindfulness means it needs a training. Yeah, mindfulness, like if you just like do this 5-minute meditation that we just did, maybe for some of you or most of you, hopefully it felt nice and it has an effect on you, but for like a few minutes, but this effect also goes away after a few minutes. So if you want to achieve something that's more long lasting, you need to train regularly. Yeah? Same thing if I sign up to the gym and I go there once and never show up again, the benefit won't be that great, right? So I won't get any, it won't be very useful to do that. Yeah? So I actually have to go there regularly. And that's the same thing with mindfulness. Yeah? You have to make this a habit at some point. Yeah? So it needs to be something, doesn't have to be every day, but it should be somewhat regularly, and somewhat regularly probably means more than once a year. So yeah. So how can you do this? Well, first, just of course, like knowledge helps, reading about things helps, and I've just put in some interesting books in the slides. And yeah, I would recommend you could start with those, especially with the 2 out on the outside of the slides, not the center one. The center is rather detailed. So that would be an interesting way to start. A more kind of hands-on practical doing thing to start would be to use apps. Yeah? There are many good mindfulness apps. Just try some, pick one that you like, and just go along with that. I just wrote down like 2 that I like, but there are many others out there, and like mostly they are okay. I don't know of anyone that's like really, really bad. Yeah. The other thing I would recommend, if you really want to dive into it, is to actually find a training, to actually find some kind of group and some kind of trainer where you can interact about your practice. Something that was really, really helpful for me was having someone else to speak about my own meditation practice. And I started like doing all of this alone, and I waited way too long to actually have someone to talk about this with. Because that was really a moment where I sensed, okay, now I'm I was for a long time at some kind of plateau of not having the sense, yeah, this is nice, but it's not going anywhere. And then talking to someone really helped me. Also, in the beginning, I would recommend find a training that is designed to help you to establish meditation or some kind of mindfulness practice as a habit. So there are many trainings out there where you have like a nice day of mindfulness and it feels good, and then it's like poof, it's like gone after a few weeks. Yeah? And it doesn't really support you that well to actually build this into your daily life. So I do trainings like that. I do public trainings only in German. If you're interested in doing this in English, I also do that in companies, so let me know. But I would really, it doesn't really matter. Of course, it matters where you do it, but like I would really recommend you, if you're interested in that, find a good place where you can do a training like that. So it helps you tremendously. Yeah. Okay. So, and there's one more thing. Because the way I talked about mindfulness today, the way I framed all of this today, is that mindfulness is actually something that helps us work better. that aligns nicely with Agile. And I believe that is true. I can see it in my work, and I believe this is also generally true. But the thing is, that's not actually all of it. Actually, mindfulness goes a lot deeper because it deals with our mind, and our mind is kind of the essential part that is like involved in every experience we have, in every second where we experience the world. And what mindfulness does through the development of concentration, clarity, equanimity, it helps you develop a deep sense of happiness and satisfaction. Because these skills allow you to experience and live your life more fully. So it's not about that there are more happy events around you. Yeah, it's not more like that you win the lottery when you do mindfulness practice. Of course not, right? But what you have is that these skills get you into a state where you are connected with your aliveness more intensely. And that means you experience this precious time we have more intensely. And that is a source of inner happiness. It's a source of inner happiness that doesn't have anything to do with what happens outside. Yeah? That's a source of inner happiness. Yeah? And actually, mindfulness is a quite reliable way to achieve this, or to achieving sounds like an endpoint, but kind of to go in that direction, of more happiness and more satisfaction. And I want to close with one story from one of the books that I recommended. It's a book about the science behind mindfulness. And one of the things it's really a nice overview. So if I haven't talked about this at all tonight, about the scientific aspects, if you want to get into that, get this one book, Altered Traits. It gives you a really good overview about what we know about the science of mindfulness. And they tell like one kind of story. And the story is about that, about a monk, so someone who's like, I don't know, 30,000 hours of mindfulness practice. It's actually a French person, Mathieu Ricard. Some of you might know him. He's quite famous because he was once in a newspaper labeled as the happiest man in the world. And he got that title through some, how to say that in English? So they did some measurements with his brain. And it turns out that you can actually measure your inclination for happiness. Has something to do with certain brain waves and how they differ between your left prefrontal cortex and your right prefrontal cortex. And if that's kind of in a certain difference, then this shows that, or then you are kind of more inclined to happiness. If it's actually the other way around, it's a good predictor for things like depression and stuff like that. So they examined this guy, Mathieu Ricard, a French Buddhist monk who has like lived for 20 years in Tibet. And so they examined him, and what they measured was kind of way off the charts. So they actually thought their measuring instruments were kind of broken. So they repeated it several times, still getting the same results. So this was like by a factor of like 1,000 different from what usually other people have when something like that is measured. And then they write this nice kind of paragraph around what the inner experience is of someone like Mathieu Ricard. And they describe it like this. So imagine an elephant is running towards you full speed, going to trample you. Yeah, like a full-grown elephant, full speed, running towards you. So imagine the intensity of feeling you have then. But imagine you have this intensity not in fear or being in panic, but rather you have this intensity of happiness. Yeah. And then imagine that you can enter a state like that, having kind of this intense experience of happiness within a few seconds. And that's what someone like Mathieu Ricard is able to do. So a really intense and deep experience of happiness and satisfaction. And I'm sharing this because that's actually why I'm doing this. For me personally, but also why I'm sharing mindfulness. I mean, I like that it helps us in our work. But there's always this kind of little thing, yeah, now we are getting more efficient, and then, we can, increase the output by 10% more, and then we can, make even more money and da, 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 da. And while this is kind of partially true, mindfulness helps with that. And it also helps with that, like in a way that we can still stay healthy in that system as someone who works there. What I find really exciting, that is actually a great personal path for a personal sense of happiness and satisfaction. I think I'm going to close with that. Thank you very much. I would love for you, so we have I would love if you could, or what I would love to do is actually send you in a small group for a few minutes in a breakout room, and just have you, just have you share, what are you taking from this talk tonight? What was meaningful for you? What was kind of interesting, meaningful for you? So just share a few how you are with that. Okay. I'm going to send you to kind of like 3 rooms. That should be 3-4 people per room. And you're going to have just 5 minutes. And then we come back and and then we have questions and so on and so on. Okay. Any questions about the procedure? Good. Okay. Here are the invitations. Right. I'll do this again. Okay.
I'm not pretty sure that we are going to speak in Serbian or in English. Maya, you speak Serbian.
Svi pričamo srpski.
Okay, so we can continue. Možemo nastaviti na srpskom.
Dobro.
Pozdrav, drugari. Nadam se da ste mi dobro. Maju, nadam se da si dobro. Lepo te videti ponovo. Hajde da razmenimo par misli po pitanju. Ćao, Marija. Da razmenimo par misli
Ćao.
U vezi sa ovim. Majo, red je da dam nekoj od dama čast da počne prva, pa sad je to teško odlučiti se, ali hajde da ispoštujemo Maju. Maja je ipak naša gošća, prethodna, jel tako? Pa Majče, kreni i mi se nadovezujemo.
Thanks. Pa meni se najviše sviđa ta ideja korišćenja u svakodnevnom životu. Napisala sam tamo tri kako mi kažemo, uzdaha pre nego što odgovorim na taj mail.
Apsolutno.
Mislim da ja tu najviše to koristim kada mogu, nekada i prepoznam da se to nije baš desilo, ali tada vidim najveću vrednost toga kada ono kao, ok, jedan coach me to isto naučio, pošto sam ja tako malo engaged, i on kaže, zavali se u stolicu, lean back, listen, like this, just like, i nekad se toga setim i kao, ok, kao mogu malo i da, pošto sam u ratobornom nekom stavu, kao dobro, ne mora baš se tako. Tako da meni je ta strana vrlo zanimljiva.
Meni je isto zanimljiva ta strana, ali isto tako mi je interesantno to što ja sam nekako, gledajući prethodne iskustva, uvek nalazim kao tampon zona između osoba kao što si ti odnosno to što si sada rekla, i osoba kao što su oni koji ne znaju to da urade ili odbijaju to iz nekog razloga da urade. Ja bih to i učinio i onda kada učinim, onda se dogodi da baš tog momenta ja sam uzdrman najviše, a opet sa druge strane kad to ne bih učinio, onda mi se uvek javlja želja, ok, pokušaj bar jednom da učiniš. I onda je kod mene uvek ta neka energetska borba, a retke su prilike kad sam to uspeo. Tako da ja sam možda
treba
psihološki...
osvestiti u momentu da se to dešava uopšte.
Da sam
mnogo
svestan
zato baš
uopšte.
dopalo kad je rekao so kindly return to your breathing, kindly, so don't judge yourself, don't feel guilty. Mislim da je to glavna nekako poruka koju se ja bar izvukla.
Da, to i jeste. To i jeste na kraju krajeva. Ajde da iskoristim ovih 50 sekundi samo da kažem, meni je bilo jako interesantno, jer mene toliko puta su ubeđivali da pristupim toj meditaciji, jogi, ne znam već čemu, i ja sam sebe smatrao toliko eksplozivnom osobom i energetski napojenom osobom da sam se ja bojao kako će to da izgleda kad bude to krenulo. Međutim, sad je bilo nekako calm. Sada, da li sam uspeo da pronađem metod, ili sam jednostavno umro u nekom momentu, ne znam, ali saznaću u narednom periodu kad to budem primenjivao, pa ćemo da vidimo u kom smeru će da idem.
Hoćemo da čujemo i drugu Maju.
Pa u pitanju je, mislim, veštine i mnogo puta, znači, ponavljanje, tako da ja sam isto tako mislila kao Aleksandar, ali sam na kraju ja nekako uspela, tako da ja više idem ka tom cilju.
Bravo, Maju. Bravo.
But it was, you did it perfectly well at the Scrum Gathering.
Okay. So welcome back, everybody. So I'm going to just remove the spotlight so we can see everybody. Yeah. So we have open floor for questions, reactions. Of course, I would love to hear what you spoke about in the small group. So anything basically you want to share that's alive in you, be it a question or something else.
I was a little bit late. I have a question.
Yeah.
I was late for Meetup. I don't know, did you mention that or not? But I will ask in any case. It's what I usually do. I have one application, and I'm using leading meditation. Is that the same, or does it have same effects or not?
Say it again. What kind of meditation? I didn't hear.
It's like a leading. Somebody is talking, like relax, focus on this.
Guided.
Okay.
Yeah.
Guided meditation. Yes.
Guided meditation.
Yeah. Guided meditation. Okay.
Yeah. I actually highly recommend this, to do this in the beginning, to actually use guided meditations. And then it's interesting. Like for me, the difference is, does it have a clear technique and some kind of idea of training? Yeah. So like I said, I mean, what I did was also guided meditation. And I said, well, I kind of explained the technique to you, and I kind of said, okay, focus on your breath. And then, you will be distracted and then you come back. So that was kind of the very brief description of the technique, right? So for me, it's useful when it has something similar like that, when there's a technique, when there's something, when you know what you need to do, what you're asked to do with your attention. And or let's say it like this, what is something else for me is something like in German, we call this Fantasiereise. It's fantasy journey would be the literal translation, but I don't think it's kind of, when you're lying at the beach and kind of you're relaxing and that can be very...
I'm sorry, Marcus. Sorry for interrupting you. Just you're a little bit volume down.
Okay, good. Hold on. So now it's better, right?
Now it's better. Okay.
Don't understand why Zoom is doing that. Okay. So for me, it's something different if you do like this kind of journey thing, yeah, where you're kind of, I'm lying on a wonderful beach and I'm kind of really relaxed, and you hear the whatever the waves,
Yeah.
So I mean, that's also great. That is great for relaxation, and I mean, if you enjoy doing that, also do that if that helps you, yeah. But I wouldn't call that mindfulness practice, because it doesn't have this element of training. It's just about relaxation. So that doesn't mean it's bad or anything, right? I just want to say it's something different for me. So that's what comes up.
Yeah, understand. Great. Thank you. Thank you.
I have a question.
Sure.
If you can hear me.
Yeah, Maria, go ahead.
Yeah.
First of all, I want to thank you for sharing this knowledge with us. And I'm interested, would you consider neuro-linguistic programming to be a skill that helps people become mindful? You said that we could maybe hack our minds.
Yeah. I don't.
Well, that was a tough one, Maria.
Yeah,
tough
No,
one.
I could help you.
Trainer here, Markus.
I have different reactions. First, I think I don't know enough about neuro-linguistic programming to really say that. So I'm
Raise your voice once again, Markus. Sorry, go up.
Okay, I don't know enough about, now it's better. Yeah, okay, I don't know enough about neuro-linguistic programming.
I'm an NLP trainer, so Maria, I will answer. If that's okay with you, Markus, no.
Thank you.
Okay.
It's something totally different. So
thank you, because I recognized some techniques
elements.
Markus described, elements, and I was really interested in that. If we could, like, maybe find some relation between those two things.
Yes, of course there is a relation, but meditation is totally different. It's like how to say, NLP has techniques that use for communication, other things you need to practice, blah blah, everything else, but it's more, you learn some skills, but meditation is something else. You learn how to be calm with yourself. That is something.
Yes, and present. Yes, I understand. Thank you so much. Thank
cool.
you.
Thank you, Daniela.
It's fine.
Okay.
I have a question, and I appreciate that it's mindfulness in Agile, but I was wondering if you did some training in like non-Agile organizations, and how was that received? What was the reaction?
Again, tough
yeah,
one.
I would say I did some training in organizations that weren't that agile. For me, so the way I experience it is like if you do this in organizations, it really needs a certain level of, how to say that, proficiency. So it doesn't have to be that they have to have like really well implemented agile processes or anything, but they need to be, I would say, kind of really open about how they work and kind of quite connected with each other. So that they say, yeah, this is something really interesting. And organizations that are kind of very stiff or something, or where there's not a lot of trust, it's really hard to honestly to do these programs in an organizational setting. So it's often that you have like the individuals who are really interested in it. And it often makes more sense to have like a mixed group from different companies. And then it's a safer space than if you do this with your colleagues for some reason. So my experience is that it's the companies who benefit the most that are already kind of quite advanced. Yeah? And that's often the agile ones, or who have some experience with that. But it doesn't have to be. So yeah, and that's what comes up for me.
Thank you, and thank you for the session. That was very nice. Thanks.
Cool. Yeah, and I want to add, to be honest, I more enjoy kind of the trainings where I have participants from all over. It's usually a much higher motivation. And even like I already kind of, when I work with clients and they want to set up something internally, I already do a lot of work that they emphasize that this is voluntarily. Yeah, so that we, we do stuff to create a safe space, and still it's not kind of the same level of motivation that I have in kind of where people really sign up individually because they said, this is a training I want. I haven't managed to get this to the same level. Anything else?
I wanted to share something that I work with the clients lately, and it's always the agile companies. I mean, or at least companies trying to become more agile. And I think the topic of mindfulness is actually the most important one. Like even for the agility, even for the implementation of agility, because when you boil it down to the personal agility, and you have to, you actually boil that down to this mindfulness, like as Daniela said, like being with yourself and knowing, especially this clear space, like concentration, focus, which is one of the commitments, and the third one that you gave it a name, like this. The space between this, I think that for me was in the structure of how I think about it, the novelty. So I really like it. I just wanted to thank you for that.
Yeah. I mean, I totally buy into this idea that if you want to, like, if you want to deeply change a company, you need personal development for the people who are kind of the biggest influencers, and that are often the kind of the leaders, the managers, but I rather look at who's really influencing the system. But it often means if there isn't any personal development happening there, it's really hard, and mindfulness can be a great kind of tool for that.
I totally agree. Like, at least that's the experience I'm having.
If I can ask one more?
Sure. Go ahead, Maya.
I'm very, very interested. I put it in the chat when you talked about clarity. I don't know if this is your area of interest or knowledge, but the concept of clear language. Is there anything around that you can share? I feel like you mentioned it in a way. So I've been to some sessions. It's quite fascinating how it can transform the interactions, but I was just wondering your
yeah. Again, it's something I only know a little bit about. I only have been like two short workshops about clean language, and for me, it's just what I got from it, a very kind of precise way how to use language, and also some processes around that, in a way that I don't impose my inner stories about the other person. So it actually kind of really helps me to keep my story for myself, and not, accidentally kind of spill it over to the other person, and to be really precise in that. And there I would also say, of course, it really helps if I have mindfulness and clarity. It also helps for the other person kind of to understand, hey, that's their story that they are making up and that we are uncovering here together. Yeah, it just, I would say it gives me a lot of kind of good tips and skills around how to express that, how to speak, so that I can keep my own story for myself. Yeah.
Very nice, thank you.
Cool. So I would say then, anything else, or we close for tonight? Maybe
Guys, feel free to ask any questions. We're slowly come to the end, so use your chance to ask some questions if you have. This Marcus smiling, so that means he's very in the mood to give you an answer. So use the opportunity.
Maybe I would like to hear from one person. What are you taking from this? Maybe one person sharing, like what was an insight? I mean, Jasmina already, you shared already a little bit. Maybe one more person. What are you?
I have an observation, if that's okay, and what I'm taking from this. That something you said is quite important to me when we did that little meditation practice in like 4 or 5 minutes. And you said, kindly return to your breathing. So that means without a guilt and without overthinking it and maybe judging yourself. And that really means something for me personally. So thank you so much for everything.
Yeah. And I think I don't want to do it now, but I could go a lot deeper why this is really important, to be kind with yourself in this moment. And to not judge yourself for, I was so distracted. Like really kind of come back kindly. It's natural that your mind is doing this.
Marcus,
cool,
sorry.
Great. Thank you.
Just one question, please. I want to use the opportunity.
Sure.
What if you are in a middle between those who can properly meditate and those who can't? What if you constantly stay between two zones as a kind of vacuum or something like that? What if you find out yourself in that position and you can't fight to go to the left or to the right side? What's your suggestion? And yes, it's me.
Notice that. Notice how it is to have this, I would say, whatever. Maybe it's a story, maybe it's kind of, this image of yourself like being in between. Notice how this is kind of, what are the parts that make up this story or this experience? Are there inner images? Is there kind of an inner conversation? Do you feel this in your body? So what is here right now? What is happening actually in this moment? That's what I would look for in a situation like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. I will try.
Okay. So really be very precise of what is actually really happening. Try to find out.
Good. Okay.
Good. Okay.
Guys, if there is no more question, we unfortunately have to finish this meetup. So use your chance. If someone has some question, use your chance, or we are closing up this session.
I don't have a question, I have a reaction.
Okay, so let us all put a reaction. Let's follow Jasmina's rule. Yeah.
So many hearts.
Now I'm feeling like.
Thank you for a clap.
Now close it.
Yeah.
I wanted to say, I think it helps that you sound a bit like Eckhart Tolle.
Really?
Oh my God!
Okay.
Yes.
Is that on the record? Oh yeah, it's recorded. Okay, I'm gonna play that part to my girlfriend if that's okay, because she sometimes listens to Eckhart Tolle and I'm like sometimes can't. I'm like, hey, spend time with me, not with this guy. Okay, good.
Okay, guys.
It was great. Thank you, Maya.
So this is the end. Danke, Markus. Es war eine Freude.
Wow.
And yeah, that was, thank you, Markus. And it was a pleasure for those who didn't understand. So guys, on behalf of Agile Humans and all of us right now, I would like to say a huge thank you for all of you who were part of this meetup. I hope we will see you at the next ones. So Markus, you were fabulous. Thank you so much. And this was so inspiring, and this was so coachfully, if I can give an adjective. And I would like to say that my conclusion, and I hope conclusion of all of us, is yes, it's worth of try. At least it's worth of try. So thank you. I hope we will see you again. And guys, once again, thank you so much for your presence this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a nice evening, guys. Bye.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.